listening to the Cars of Carlisle Network, podcast episode 75. Tony Jackson, Dirt Track Champion.
Cars of Carlisle is your favorite internationally downloaded podcast about all things automotive. Darren and his CFC team are ever searching for interesting automotive happenings, real stories about real car people, and fun features to inform and entertain you. Each week, the Cars of Carlisle crew brings you show topics ranging from car shows to team adventures to auto racing weekends to behind-the-scenes human interest stories from car nuts that live across town, across the country, or even across the globe. Come join the road trip.
Today, meet local dirt track racing champion Tony Jackson. Listen in to hear what it's like to pilot a 600-plus horsepower Super Sportsman machine around quarter, 3/8, and half-mile tracks in the central Pennsylvania region. As a young talent, Tony is no stranger to open-wheel racing. He has grown up at the track learning car handling skills from his father, Larry Jackson, an extremely successful retired racer, and wrenching in the pits with his cousin, Barry Jackson. The Jackson family has spent many seasons at the front of the pack and in the winner's circles of various tracks. Fire up the 320 cubic inch race engines. It's time to meet a 2019 Path Valley Track champion. So, let's get revved up!
Hello and welcome back, Cubers, to your favorite informative automotive podcast. I am your trusted host, Darren, and this is episode 75. And in this, I sat down with a 30-something race car driver in this area, Tony Jackson. He comes from a long line of racing family members, and he is a very, very dynamic driver, very smooth on the track. In fact, I spent most of the 2019 season checking out his racing style over some weekends with friends, and he is just very smooth in traffic. You'll hear him talk about what it's like to be piloting a Super Sportsman. What impresses me is the fact no matter where he starts in the field, he can work his way up through and thread like a needle to get up into the top 2, top 3 positions easily. A very, very gifted and naturally talented driver. So excited for you to hear more about that. Before we get into the trivia question and jump to the interview with Tony, I want to take this time to tell you all about the things that are happening with our friends at the AACA Museum. It's Fall Meat Week in Hershey. The AACA Museum is excited to welcome their friends from all around the world. The museum will close at noon on Wednesday, October 9th, so that they can prepare for the Night at the Museum event. This is a fun evening of friends and fellowship in the hobby where this year they're going to honor Carlisle Events co-founders Bill Miller Jr. and Chip Miller. Call the AACA Museum directly for any remaining tickets that are available if you'd like to attend. Phone number there is 717-566-7100. The museum will open late on the 10th of October and the 11th of October, but staying open until 9 p.m. This allows anyone that's attending the Fall Meat Field event to then go over and check things out at the museum. Also join them on Friday morning, the 12th of October, from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. for your chance to go behind the scenes. Caffeine Behind the Scenes is an event allowing you to have exclusive access to the museum's collection of storage garage. You'll get to explore 50 to 75 additional vehicles that are currently not on view in the main museum. Coffee and donuts are served while supplies last. No advance registration necessary. Join the fun from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. on the 12th of October. Admission is by donation to support the AACA Museum. The event sponsor that they'd like to thank is National Parts Depot. Visit aacamuseum.org for full details. Just follow the road directly behind the museum to find the garage. Parking is available in the main museum parking lot. Also on Saturday, the 12th of October, teens and parents are encouraged to attend the Stay Alive While Driving program from 1 to 2 p.m. Professional race car driver Lauren Elmer will be there to share tips and techniques to drivers of all ages and how best to avoid car accidents. He will also discuss teen driving while teens are distracted drivers and what parents can do to help with that. He'll also talk about unintended acceleration and what drivers can do if that happens. This program is free with your visit to the AACA Museum on Saturday, October 12th. What they ask is that you register in advance so that they can prepare adequately. As far as this week's trivia question, let's keep it around the dirt track, and this is what I have in mind. Name 3 distinct differences between a sprint car and a Super Sportsman race car. That answer at the end of this episode. So now let's head towards Newville, Pennsylvania, and sit down with Tony Jackson. Hello, Cubers. This is Darren, and I am just west of Carlisle, and I'm at the home of Tony Jackson. Tony, thanks for having me here this evening.
Yep, no problem.
Tony is a full-time landscaper and business owner, and also a Super Sportsman dirt track racer, and that's why we're here to talk. I've seen him race throughout this season, and Tony, definitely want to talk a little bit about how you got into it, and even for those that maybe aren't as familiar with this discipline of racing, where the roots of it, and of course you growing up through it with your father Larry and some other things. So talk a little bit about Super Sportsman and how you worked your way up to get to where you are today.
Yeah, so basically I kind of was, like you said, raised in it. My dad raced Super Sportsman at Silver Springs from the mid to late 70s up into the early 90s, most years with my uncle. So giving away my age a little bit, I was born in 84. So obviously, once I got to be a few years old, I can remember a lot of it in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was there once. I grew up at the Springs on Saturday nights when I was my son's age now, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And then he kind of got out of it. And then as a teenager, before I started racing, my cousin, which would be my dad's brother's son, so he's my first cousin, Barry Jackson, he is a mechanic for a sprint car team, which is similar to what we race, a little bit different. And he's been involved in local racing here, All-Star Circuit of Champions, it's basically like an Ohio deal. And then obviously now he's involved with the World of Outlaws, so he travels coast to coast. And that car's kept just right down the road from here. So I spent a lot of time with him, learning the ropes as far as working on cars, and going with him, and kind of learned that end of it. And then my first opportunity came along, I want to say, I think around 99 or 2000. I started to race micro sprints at Path Valley Speedway, and I raced those through about 2004. I think I raced them 5 years. And it just got to the point where I was ready to move up to another division, but it was so expensive. We had some success, and it was so expensive. And my dad, involved in landscaping also, like I am, it's kind of you can make an okay income, but it's hard income, it's hard work. So I hated to see him spend hard-earned money on racing at the time. Yeah. So I kind of backed away from it and quit, and went a different route, and just enjoyed watching the races and doing some other stuff. And then I want to say, let's see, we're in 2019, so about 13, Claire Finkenbinder approached me and said about coming back and racing. And I knew I wanted to do it, but I wasn't sure I still could do it because I got a little older and hadn't been in it for so long. And had married my wife since, she was not brought up in racing or anything like that. So I had to run it by her, and she was okay with it. And so here we are now, 6 years later, and won a championship this year.
Absolutely. That's pretty amazing. In fact, that was one that you really had the clutch on pretty much throughout the season.
Yeah, so just to roll back 1 year, we had my car owner had some tragedy last year. He lost his son to an accident, and we decided that we were going to race again full time. We kind of had took the year before off prior to running part time. We decided to come back this year and race at Path Valley full time in the Wingless Series, and our goal was to win a race and ultimately win the championship, which we succeeded. We won 2 races and the championship. So it was a good year. With the wins, we'd like to have a few more wins, but we're not complaining. 2 wins in the championship's not too bad. Sure. But so it's been a fun year, and it's been a trying year, just with all the the emotions and stuff from everything that happened last year.
And it seemed like there was a pretty neat tribute just this past weekend.
Yeah. So this past weekend was our final points night, which we wrapped up and won the points, and then they also had the PA micro sprints there, and that's what Britton, his son, was starting to drive last year before before this happened, and so he was a young and upcoming, future race car driver. And so while they were there with us this week, they had a tribute race for him where they ran 17 laps in tribute to his car number, the same as ours, and had a little extra pay on the line for them too. So yeah, it was kind of cool.
And for those that may have seen Tony race, the bounty hunter, want to talk a little bit about? I know you probably told this story 407 times. But.
Yeah. So it's probably been 4 years ago. The Wingless Series was just getting started. They've been, I think this was the 6th year or the 5th. I lose track. But it's been at least 4 years ago. And the gentleman that was winning a lot of the races up there when they first started, his name was Carmen Perrigo Jr. He still wins races when he runs with us. He doesn't race with us weekly, but he runs here and there. And he was winning everything, every race they ran. The first year there were 6 wingless shows, and I think he won all 6.
Wow.
And the second year, we had 12 shows, and I think he won the first couple. And then we started to race. We decided we were running wing shows at the time. We were running the regular Super Sportsman Wing Series. We decided we wanted to try our hand in the wingless, so we went up, and the first time we really liked it, so we kept going back. Well, we kept getting faster and faster and faster, and finally, they put a little bounty out on Carmen because he had won, I think, maybe 8 of the first 10 shows they've had in this series, and no one could beat him. And not too far into that second year, our first year there racing, after they put the bounty on him with the extra money, we actually won it. We beat him, finally beat him. We were the first guy to beat him, I think, or something. I'm not sure he had won so many or all of them. And so the announcer at the track, Mike Donald, he kind of, I guess, gave me that nickname, the Bounty Hunter, and it has stuck with me.
Well, it's in the graphics for those. Yeah. We'll try and get some photos out there on Instagram, but the car is very cool with the graphics.
We went with that up the side the past 2 years as far as the name Bounty Hunter, and it kind of sticks out. It's pretty cool.
It does stand out. It really does. Well, for those that maybe aren't as familiar with Super Sportsman, it's similar to sprints, but it's a little different animal altogether. Do you want to talk about the setup, the chassis, and of course, obviously, the lack of wings? And
So the Super Sportsman's been around for years. Like I said, the home track for Super Sportsman was Silver Springs for years, and unfortunately, it's went away, and now it's a Wegmans and all that. But after they left there, they went to Susquehanna for a short time, and basically wound back up at Williams Grove for quite a few years. I got the privilege to race at Williams Grove my first 2 years in the series when I raced, and I think it was 14 and 15, and we actually won the last Saturday night race at Williams Grove, and it was my first race I ever won. So I got my name in the record books at Williams Grove, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
because it's one of the most historic dirt tracks in the country.
Right.
So I did get a win there. After 2 years of racing there, the series moved to Susquehanna, which is now considered Baps Motor Speedway, and we got a couple wins there with the wing. When we were doing double duty, we were racing there on Saturday nights and Path Valley on Friday nights. So that's where the Super Sportsman Series is active now. They race at Baps on Saturday nights, and the Wingless Series races at Path Valley on Saturday nights. But the series is similar to like a sprint car, other than the motors are a little different. We're our cubic inch size is smaller, so less horsepower equals less money to build them.
Sure.
Let's see. The frames are similar but a little different. The tubing's a little different on the bottom, and a little heavier. Our cars are roughly 1,750 pounds, and I haven't kept up with it, but I think sprint cars are in the 1,300 to 1,400 pound range, and I think their motors now are probably in the 900 horsepower range, where ours is in the 650. Okay. Maybe even less than that. But so anyhow, there is a difference there, and like I said, there's also a difference in what it costs to run a 410 sprint car versus a Super Sportsman. So that varies a little bit, but all in all, it's
still just as exciting.
Yeah, it's just as exciting. sometimes actually more exciting just because of the way the format works. I know I try to get to some sprint car races to watch my cousin, because like I said, he's a mechanic for a Word of Outlaw team, and sprint car racing, I feel, is it's still exciting, but it's just the passing's not there like it used to be. I'm not sure if it's a tire combination they have right now, or just the large wings on the cars just have them glued to the track, or what it is. But I know since I've went wingless racing full time, and even when I was doing both, it's wingless racing for any kid out there that's starting. I know wingless racing definitely makes you a better driver, because you learn car control so much better. And like I said, that's not a shot at any wing series anywhere, because I like running wings too. But
it's just physics.
It is, and the car they do not handle. I mean, I always said, to make a good race, you don't really want the cars to handle the best, because the better they handle, I feel, the less passing there's going to be. So if you take the wings off and they don't handle as good, you're going to have cars that are really good or off a little bit or whatever. So you're going to have some changes there. So you're going to have guys that are better than other guys with making their car work. Versus where if the wing has the car planted, I feel like there's
it's more equalized.
Exactly, yeah. It's more equalized.
It's like NASCAR, where everything is just pretty much governed, and it's just so. And
So, like I said, I mean, that's nothing. Like I said, that's not a hit on wing racing. It's just my personal my opinion on it right now. And I mean, like I said, I love going to watch a sprint car race. It's just when you get used to going and watching cars start 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and win races. That doesn't happen too often when you go to a sprint car race. And what I was referring to there was like our series, our high point man, or the winner from the previous week, the way we handicap our system, you start somewhere between 9th and 12th. And a lot of times the winner, comes from 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, where sprint car racing, it's usually off the front row.
Yeah.
So,
and Tony's being very, very humble. I've been to a handful of his races at Path Valley this year, and just that, going from 9th to 2nd, or working your way all the way up through the field. And one of the things, Tony, that I've noticed is your patience. I mean, obviously, it's almost like chess, and you're the driver, I'm not.
Yeah.
But I've noticed where there are times if you are there, you're pushed down to the inside, and you like to run high and clean. You'll actually back off the throttle, drop a couple positions, 2-3 positions, thread your way back up, take the high line, and then drop back down.
Yeah.
You're constantly looking at it from a strategic standpoint, and I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, and basically what you're doing there is, you have 30 laps to get it done, and if you start 9th, obviously the sooner you get to the front, the better, but also you can't put yourself in danger, and it kind of depends on how you're racing. If it's like, for instance, this past Saturday night, going into the deal, we wanted to win the race. We always want to win, but we knew also the big picture was to win the points, and we knew where we had to finish if the guy we were racing, Billy Bryan, would win the race, which he started 8th in the feature. I started 9th. He got going really good early on and got to the lead fairly quick, probably within like the first 8 or 9 laps.
So you guys really push each other.
Yeah, we do. We race hard against one another, which is pretty cool because he's a veteran, and he respects me, and I respect him a lot because he's did well in his career, and he's a great addition to our series there that we have going, because he's won a lot of 410 sprint races, and to have somebody like that racing with us up there, it's just pretty cool. But anyhow, he got to the lead pretty quick Saturday night, and I think we were stuck in 7th for quite a while. And I just kind of was biding my time, and kind of narrowly missed an accident right in front of us that we got through that really helped us get up through there. And then our car just kept getting better and better at the end, and we actually ended up finishing 2nd to him Saturday night, but we really didn't even fall into 2nd till about a lap and a half to go. I got by Joey Biasi for 2nd. And really didn't have no time to be able to race Billy because it took us a while to get up through there. And I did race a little bit more cautious than I normally do. But like you said, you're just always searching, whether the high line's where you want to be, the low line. I tend to try to race where they're not. I've learned it just through mentors, my dad, different people, you want to try to make your car work where everybody else is not running.
Yeah.
And if they're running the bottom, you want to try to make your car work on the top because obviously they're not
Stay
in
out
your
of
lane,
traffic.
or vice versa. And Saturday night was a little tricky. It was mostly a bottom track, so we typically are better on the top, but our car was working really good on the bottom Saturday night. So, but yeah, that's just a chess game you play every week.
And you've got it down. What walk us through for those that aren't as familiar with open wheel and dirt track. I mean, that first time you went out in a Super Sportsman, I'm sure the 600 plus horsepower, it had to have been a pretty amazing thrill.
Yeah, so the first time, because I can definitely remember, we went to Lincoln Speedway for the 410.
That's a half mile, right?
It's a 3/8.
A 3/8, okay.
Lincoln
All
is a 3/8. We went there the opening, I think it was opening day for the 410s, which is like late February, early March. And we went there for that because they were having an open practice after the race. And of course, it was a day show, so till we got on the track, it was basically like racing on asphalt. So you need to have your car very, tight so it's not loose on you because you don't have a lot of grip whenever the track's that dry and slick. And the first couple of laps was like, wow, this is definitely. I mean, I hadn't drove a car in a long time, and I had drove a micro sprint before this, so there's a huge difference.
Oh yeah.
So the first year was definitely a learning curve. The first half of the year was really rough. I mean, we were just wanting to qualify for races, and then it became a deal where once we qualify, okay, let's shoot for a top 15, and you just slowly build and build and build. And I do think towards the end of the first year, we had either 1 or 2 second place finishes. We almost stole a win our first year towards the end of the year. And then the second year we came out, we struggled a little bit early, but then we did, like I said, get going middle of the year, and then we got better and better. We kind of fed off that. We got our first win at the end of our second year.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then that was kind of our turning point.
Yeah.
From then on, I felt like
your confidence was full.
Yeah, I felt like we were a car that could win any night we went to the racetrack after we got that first win, just because we were. You kind of you kind of know you can do it then.
Sure.
So like you said, your confidence racing as a driver standpoint, confidence goes a long, long way.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
So,
what from a handling standpoint, obviously counter steering and really when it's starting to push and the understeer and everything else, what are other elements in the physics of driving Super Sportsman that maybe the average listener may not even be aware of?
So, I mean, you covered a lot of it. Like I said, the one thing with the wingless cars versus the wing cars, you definitely do a lot more counter steering just because the car's not under you as much as it is with the wing. But I'm one that likes really, really good brakes. We kind of had a little problem with that Saturday night. We changed brake rotors and stuff after hot laps because my brakes weren't very good.
Okay.
I just like to have good brakes because I really like to charge the corners in traffic and stuff. And I feel like when you have guys in front of you, the last thing you want to do is run into them. So when I go to use my brakes, I want solid brakes. I don't want brakes that are spongy that take, because that's just kind of like an eerie feeling to have. And I've actually finished some races. I won a race at Path Valley one night a couple years back. I think it was 2 years ago. I got the lead, and with like 8 to go, it was a fast track where we were running the top. So you don't use a lot of brakes when you're kind of rolling around the top on the cushion. But
like
you
a
still,
power on drift.
Yeah, but you still need them. And one time I went to just touch them a little bit, getting into the corner to set the car, and they went to the floor. I had no brakes. I can't remember. I think we broke a line, so all the brake fluid pushed out. So we had no brakes at all. So the last 8 laps, it was kind of a little hairy because if I would have jumped a cushion or something, we definitely would have been in the fence and probably upside down or who knows what. But I'm one that likes good brakes. I want good brakes all the time just because I feel like you can charge harder when you have good brakes.
Are you left foot on the brakes so you can feather and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have a brake pedal on the left and a throttle pedals on the right. And like you said, as the track gets drier and drier throughout the night, a lot of times, this may sound funny, but to go faster, you actually need to slow down. Meaning you're kind of throttling, you're kind of just in and out of the gas. So in other words, when it's real heavy, the more on the gas you can be, usually the better, because you're getting max power down to the track and you're driving.
Gotcha.
As it gets slicker, now you have all this horsepower. You're trying to get to a slick track.
Yep.
So a lot of times you try to slow your wheel spin down so you're gripping the track, not just spinning on top of it. So a lot of times, and a lot of drivers have problems with this, that you actually need to slow down to go faster as it gets drier. So.
And I noticed that when you're running hard against Billy Bryant, I mean, he's a very smooth driver. You've obviously become smoother and smoother with each season and each race. I think that falls right in line with your last point. Sometimes you can do those hard charges, but if you just stay real consistent and you stay real smooth, that can get your ET or your, as far as your lap times, bring that down too.
Yep, no doubt. Like I said, I mean, the biggest thing in dirt track racing, everybody, obviously you're going through the corners sideways, but I'm not one that likes to actually what I call pitch the car in real hard. I would rather drive the car, because I feel like when you're pitching the car, you're upsetting your tires and everything. Your car is not as stable. So I feel like the more you can drive in straight on the cushion and keep the car straight, the more your tires are under you. To me, that's just a little bit of common sense, really, because I mean, that's my belief. I mean, I know guys that like to throw the cars in sideways and all that and slide and all that, but I still think at the end of the day, you're better when you can drive your car straight in and straight through the turn. So especially when you have a cushion to put your right rear against.
Right. And you were saying about your cousin Barry and the time you were helping to wrench and that type of thing. What do you think? I mean, there's obvious advantages, but for you personally, what do you think has really helped with your mechanical knowledge, that experience with wrenching with your cousin, so that when you come off of hot laps as a driver, you can really speak to what's happening with the vehicle?
So I think to be a good race car driver, I know a lot of sprint car drivers just personally through him and through being around it all my life. And personally knowing them, usually the good sprint car drivers are the ones that have either worked on their race cars, or you have to know what your car is doing. So when you come in off the track, just for instance, if you go out in hot laps and it just, when you go in the turn and the front end wants to just push to the fence, that's kind of like sorry about that. That means your car is tight. So when your car is tight, typically you need more stagger, so you need more tilt in the car, so the car turns into the corner, or vice versa. If you go in and the car wants to come around on you in the back, that means you're loose, so you want to actually tighten up a little bit, take stagger out. Or you can adjust with air pressure or shocks. There's a bunch of different things you can do, moving your right rear, your left rear in or out. So we have a lot of different ways we can adjust the cars, but definitely being around the setup part of it early on in my career helped me as a driver. There's no question, just because I think that the biggest thing is when you come off the racetrack, to be a good driver, you got to be able to tell your mechanic, here's what we need to do. This is and I've been around some sprint car drivers when they've got out of their cars at the racetrack and they really have no clue what to tell their mechanic, and it just kind of surprises me. It's like, how'd they get this far with not knowing the track better than what they do, or what the car is doing? Because I guess some people just pick it up different than others, but like I said, that's definitely a big help, because some of the best sprint car drivers in the country that's ever drove or anything usually are guys that either work on their own cars or definitely know how to work on them. They came up that way. Yep, for sure.
Now, do you have a radio back to your crew?
No, all we have is a one-way radio where we can hear from the officials.
Okay.
There's one official that'll talk to us and basically get us in line between the cautions. They'll line us up. They'll tell us where the computer scored us prior to the last caution. Sometimes we don't agree with it, but we have to listen, because that's where we're at. But so basically, there's no two-way radios allowed.
Okay.
It's just what we can hear from the officials in the booth, and then really the only thing we can do with any kind of communication would be just hand signals through the fence with our team.
Okay. And how aware are you of what lap number you're on? Because I imagine if you're deep into a 30-lap
Yeah.
race and you don't have the two-way communication.
I don't get a lot. I mean, I don't get a lot of time, but you do get a little bit of a chance when you come off a turn 4 at Path Valley, and it's a small track.
Right.
You can glance real quick to the left and see the scoreboard over
Okay,
there, and
okay.
usually they have, they keep up with it with the board. But obviously under yellow, I'm always looking. I always look when we're under
Gotcha.
yellow
Okay.
to see where we're at. But if we go along, if we take the green flag and we go quite a few laps without a yellow, I will try to glance. If I'm not in heavy traffic, just to see where I'm at, so I know how many laps are left, because obviously that's important.
Well, sure. And
So-
we were talking earlier about how you make those chest moves and you drop back and thread through and what have you. All that's happening so fast. Do you find that it's almost you're just going off of your instincts, or are you at times when you're coming up, you're wheel to wheel, maybe you're 2 or 3 abreast on the back straight, what have you? Do you ever feel like, how do you keep manage it all? Because there's a lot happening around you.
Yeah, it is. I just think maybe that's why certain people are maybe better at it than others. I think guys with good reflexes, obviously, they excel in racing because,
Sure.
Things happen so quick. Typically, when I go out before a race, I try to drive around the first lap and just try to look at the surface and see where I think I need to run just by reading the soil.
Do you walk the track ever, or do you?
I do sometimes between like the heat races and the feature. Sometimes I don't get time. My crew guys sometimes go out and check it out, but it's just something that you just once the more seat time, the better. You kind of
Sure.
learn. You kind of learn where typically you need to be on the track, and you just kind of hope that the cars you're racing with are in the other lanes, or you go to the other lanes they're not in. But yeah, you got to have good reflexes, and you just try to put yourself in the best position you can, really.
Yeah. And that's something very interesting. When you said that, it made me think about checking the track. But unique to dirt track racing, I think, is it's a living track. It's changing from the time your heats to the time you feature. Granted, you can say that, I guess, about asphalt, that weather conditions and the temperature of the track and all of that, but the surface itself is changing. Its pitch, its density, everything is not going to be the way it was an hour previous.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, typically on a normal night, we're just tightening the car up as the night goes on, because
Gotcha.
the track's getting drier and drier and drier as the night goes.
All the moisture's coming out.
All the moisture's coming out. So typically, the freest we have the car all night is for hot laps, and then we tighten the car up a little for the heat race, and then usually tighten the car up either a little bit more or a lot more for the feature.
Okay.
This just for example, this week we only tightened up a little bit for the feature, and we probably should have went a little tighter. I mean, we finished second, but we definitely, if we'd have been we'd even been better this week. But we just the track kind of fooled us this week. We didn't think it changed much from the heat to the feature, but it actually did.
Okay.
So,
and that's, again, it's a
guessing
gamble
game.
and the guessing game. Yeah.
yeah. That's
Well,
for
you've got a
sure.
really great crew around you. I know
Yeah.
the Finkenbinders and
Yeah.
everyone has been really well working together. And like you said, past that second season, it all began to come together and click.
Yeah, sure did.
Well, I'll give you a final word if you want to put a shout out to sponsors, to car owner, anything that you want to do. I'm going to let you have the final word, Tony.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Tripp Finkenbinder. I mean, like I said, he supplies us with basically the best you can buy. We have good motors, good chassis, the whole 9 yards, all the products we need to succeed. That's why we succeed. And obviously the guys that all help, Derek Lay, good friend of mine for years. He lives just back the road here. He helps every week. It's just not like show up at the racetrack. We have shop night through the week, so it's there's a lot more goes into it than a lot of people think.
Oh, yeah.
Joey Piper, another friend of mine, just lives up the road, not that far. Todd Schellenberger, he's there all the time, and he's been really good help, because he's been around racing all his life. He used to race go-karts and stuff, so he has a lot of background knowledge. It helps. And then obviously Tripp, he helps too with the owner and setting the car up and all that. So basically it's those 4 guys and myself, and then all of our sponsors. We have McCoy Brothers Construction out of Carlisle. They've been with us since we've started. They've probably been our best sponsor we've had. They've helped every year, and they're a good group of guys. They come support us and watch us. And then we have Chaz Fingenbinder from the Country Butcher Shop here in Plainfield. He's been with us since we've started. Hip and Steel's Auto Service, which is just right up the road here on 233. Mike, he's been friends with Tripp for years, and he's been with us since we've started. That's the thing. Most of our sponsors have been with us every year since we've started. And a lot of them try to make it to the races, too, to watch us and support us, which means a lot.
I was going to say, that's more than just a check.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Gary Handmaker builds our motors. You know, they're great motors, stay together for us, and so that's, you know, we got a lot of power there. Joey Piper, he has an advertising business. He's the guy that helps on the car. He throws in and helps when he can too. So, like I said, we have a lot of good sponsors and a lot of good, you know, guys that help every week, week in, week out. And if it wasn't for that, you know, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about a championship, obviously, because it takes more than just like myself or Tripp. It takes a lot of hands to make
Chelsea
it go around.
And the kids,
yeah,
and I mean, there's
like I said, Chelsea,
even if they're not in the pits, they're there. So
and they're supporting us every week and cheering us on. And it's like I said this week after they were interviewing us at the championship. And this isn't a knock on anybody else that races at Path Valley, but I'm almost certain we have more people supporting us in the stands than any other single team there, because
I agree.
We take a lot of fans and
that
and
Carlisle
friends
Newville
and
contingency is there.
Yeah,
all the time.
they're real supportive, and that means a lot.
You want to talk a little about you had some fans come in from Vegas, right?
Yeah, so I have so I was referring a while ago to Barry, my cousin. Well, his sister Lisa, which is my other cousin, you know, she's a cousin to me also. Her and her husband Vince, they live in Las Vegas. They moved out there. Oh boy, I lose track of time. Maybe 6-7 years ago, and they came home and surprised my uncle and aunt this weekend for their birthday. And obviously, they were in here for 3 or 4 days, and they were able to make it up Saturday night and make it to the races, which was pretty special since we were racing for the championship. They were able to be there, so that was pretty cool. And they've always been race fans growing up, obviously. Lisa grew up with Barry because obviously he's been in racing all his life too, so they follow the races a lot. So that was pretty cool. They were here, but yeah, it was. We're lucky to have the support we have.
Yeah, you do.
So
that's excellent. Well, thank you very much, and to the Cubers and the fans of Cars of Carlisle, be sure to check out Tony Jackson. Anything as far as with your business, or even with any websites or things that they can find more information on the race team?
We don't really have a website or anything. We've never really got it. I mean, really the only place to keep up with us is Path Valley Speedway has a website.
Okay.
Like I said, we're going to be racing there again next year. That'll be our main focus, Path Valley again. We may venture out and do a couple wing shows at BAPS, Susquehanna Speedway this year or next year also. That's still up in the air a little bit, but we'll definitely be racing about the same schedule as we did this year.
All right. Well, it's been my pleasure to sit down with the 2019 champion. So thank you very much, Tony, and wish you a great evening.
Yep. Thank you.
Welcome back to Studio A here at Cars of Carlisle Studios. Thank you to Tony for taking time to sit with me on his back porch and talk all about his racing career. It was a really enjoyable time. So let's go with the trivia question, and I think what I asked you all at the beginning of the show is simply this. What are some 3 differences between a sportsman race car and a sprinter? Well, for one, a sportsman wheelbase must be at least 90 inches. A sprint car has a narrower wheelbase from front to back than that. One major difference, obviously, is that there are no wings on a sportsman. And as you heard Tony say, it takes a different kind of driving. You really have to muscle and work the car and feel that finesse. That's a unique part of that. One other difference, too, is the way that the body of the car is shaped. On a sprint car, the width of the car, if you're looking at it down from staying at the front of it looking down, it stays relatively the same width on the tub or running down the whole length. Whereas on a Super Sportsman, it tends to flare out as you get to the rear of the vehicle. That also makes the cockpit bigger in the Super Sportsman, and some say whether or not that has anything to do with the safety or not, having that extra room for the driver. One other difference, too, to mention is that the frame is slightly different. On the Super Sportsman, it has 2x4 box tubing for the bottom frame rails. And that just is a different type of reinforcement to the chassis itself. And one other difference to bear in mind is that while a sprint car typically is fuel injected, Super Sportsman tends to be carbureted. Before we wrap, I want to say thank you to everyone for coming in week after week, listening, downloading. Those that subscribe, you know the benefits. It automatically is queued up into your podcast queue, and you have it there waiting for you each Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. To those that haven't yet subscribed, it's free. It takes only a couple minutes. And while you do that, go out to iTunes and rate and review. If you give us 5 stars, that would be amazing. Drop me an email at carsofcarlisle@outlook.com, and I'll be sure to mention you on a future episode. So thank you so much, guys. You are what this podcast is about. It is about the car community and car culture. Without the people, it would be nothing. Thank you. For now, I'll say drive well, be well, and take care.